Hello, crafty friends. This is Leah Lawson, and welcome back to my channel. I'm excited to be joining Syberia Designs for a YouTube hop today, celebrating their July release products. There are 4 $15 gift card codes up for grabs today, so you'll definitely want to hop along and check out all of the amazing inspiration. You should have come here from Kelly's YouTube channel, and I'm actually the last stop on the hop. So you can head over to Syberia's YouTube channel if you would like to continue on. We are going to start today by hot foiling sentiments that I'll use throughout the cards that I share with you today. This is the new Essential Sentiments press plate and die set from Syberia. I have done all of the steps for heating up my hot foil plate, and I am going to hot foil these in bright pink foil. Believe that is what I showcased first. Nope, I'm wrong. This is rose gold. So we have a set in the rose gold foil first, and then I also am going to foil them up in the bright pink foil as well. You'll notice I've added a little paper shim in between my two plastic shims that come with the Glimmer hot foil system. I have just felt that I have gotten better results when foiling with a press plate by adding that paper shim. That is always a troubleshooting option, but if you find that you are getting scratchy or splotchy foiling, try adding just a little bit of extra pressure with a paper shim and see how your results end up. Now, if you have a solid hot foil plate, go ahead and foil the remainders or the leftover foil with that option. And this just gives you a plethora of sentiment options. I always like to do the reverse foiling right away if possible, so that the work is just done and you have all of the sentiment options that you need. And then, of course, you aren't wasting any foil as well. There are a few companies out there that offer solid hot foil plates now, so just use the one that is of your preference. Now, there is a coordinating one-piece die for all of these sentiments, which you know is one of my favorite things. So I went ahead and I die cut all of the sentiments, and so I now have all of these beautiful options available to me. The standard and the reverse foiled in both rose gold and bright pink. So our first cards that we're going to start off with are some BetterPress letterpress options using the Summer Flower press plate. Now, I am just getting my BetterPress system set up here. I am taping down some porcelain cotton paper to the platen. Now, this is the flip side or the reverse side of the platen, because when we go to flip this over onto our BetterPress system, we want our cotton paper in the right spot. Now, I'm just using little itty bitty pieces of tape to tape down my plate into place. You can also double up the tape and put it on the back. Totally up to you. I'll end up trimming this panel down, so I'm not too worried if a little bit doesn't come through. So now I am starting to ink up this plate. Now, it's a pretty solid plate in areas, so you'll definitely want to have a little bit of a heavier hand, especially in the areas that are solid. And I am starting out just by ink blending this nice turquoise gradient. I started with a darker tone at the top and then ink blended my way down to the bottom, getting lighter as we go. I wanted the darker tone to be the most prevalent on this one, so I definitely did go a little bit heavier handed. Now, something that helps blend and smooth out those lines is if you come in with a blending brush. And then if you feel like you smoothed it out a little bit too much, you can just go ahead and add a little bit of extra ink. Now, I know that this might seem a little bit blotchy, but trust the process when it comes to BetterPress, because we are going to end up with fabulous results that I can't wait to show you. So just doing a little bit more fussing there with my brush. Now we're going to go ahead and flip the platen over so that this design will press upwards into that cotton paper when we run it through our Spellbinders Platinum 6. Now here we are. Here is the big reveal, and look at how stunning that gradient turned out. I just absolutely love it. Now I am going to do this again, so I'm going to go ahead and clean my plate and the magnetic pad that's underneath as well, and just get everything nice and clean for the next time, the next panel that we are going to do here. So you'll notice it didn't get any ink in those corners. That's okay. You can always ink blend them or add a little bit of ink with direct to paper from your ink pad, or also just trim it away. So we are doing this one more time. This time I'm doing a little bit more of a very colorful pink to orange, almost sunset gradient, which I think is going to just be stunning with this big flower. Now, if you get little threads from your ink cubes, don't worry. There are thousands of threads in the ink cubes. This happens often, and I just grab them with a pair of tweezers, and my ink cubes are still in great form. So don't worry about your ink cubes if they lose a little bit of felt. Then I grabbed that brush and just blended and smoothed out the line a little bit. And we're going to do the same as panel number 1. Just run it through a Platinum 6. And let's see the stunning results for this one. Look at that. Just a lovely gradient from pink to orange, and then our blue gradient as well. So I wanted the middles of the flowers to have a little bit of extra something. So this is just a sparkle marker. I believe it's Spectrum Noir in the color Firefly. And the cotton paper, while it's not watercolor paper, if you're fairly quick about it, you actually can get a pretty good gradient with watercolors. So I wanted to add a bit of sparkle and shine to this. I think you'll get a video angle after they dry a little bit where you can actually see the sparkle a bit better. But I went ahead and I did that for both of those big flower middles just to add a sunshiny pop of color to them. Super simple and a very easy watercolor step. Now this panel here, we're actually going to turn into a really fun shaker. So I'm using just teeny tiny pieces of low tack tape. I believe this is the yellow tape from Spellbinders. Pardon me. And I am just taping this rectangle die from the Nested Scalloped Frames die set from Syberia, and I am cutting out the middle. Now, I just made sure that that tape didn't overlap any of the BetterPress inking that I did, just because that is where the paper is a little bit more malleable now that it has ink on it, and it would have been more likely to pull up. And it was plenty of tape to adhere that in place while it ran through my die cut machine. Now let's go ahead and get going on creating that window. I am just adding some double-sided tape here to the edges of my card, and then removed the release paper, and I am adding just a panel of clear acetate to make that shaker window. So this is going to go on top of the card, but I do want that other piece to go in the middle. So this is where you could get a little bit more technical. You could use the die and draw it out. I am just going to eyeball it as best as I can and center it as best as I can in the card. I find liquid glue is really easy and the best option for this. It gives you a little bit of leeway and a little bit of wiggle room to get that panel as adhered, as centered as possible. And then if you need to make a couple of adjustments here and there before it really glues into place, you do have some time. Now we need to add some foam tape to our shaker window back in order to create basically space for the shaker mix to go. I went ahead and actually added 2 layers of that foam tape. And then now I'm just putting a little bit of glittery, starry shaker mix into the center of the card and removing the release paper. And then going to go ahead and adhere that frame down. I want to adhere it as straight as possible. So kind of flipped it around so I could see it better. And then before you do a really big shake, you might want to check all of your areas. Now, I had some areas where that fine glittery part of my shaker could come out. So I'm just using a fine-tipped glue bottle to fill up those little holes where some of the shaker mix could come out. And then once that glue sets up, nobody will ever know it's there. And look at just that little bit of added shimmer along with the shaker mix. The nice shimmer that the watercolor added, it's just a fun touch, pardon me. So now we're going to add one of those foiled sentiments that we did first. This is in the bright pink foil. I think it matches that pink that we added to the top of our ombre gradient really well. And we have a nice fun card. Now, we are going to do a little bit more of a simple look. Check out just the shimmer that watercolor added to the flower middles. I just love it. So off camera, I added foam tape to the back of this panel, and we are adhering it down to a white card base. And then I'm using one of the rose gold foiled sentiments for this one. I thought the "You Are the Best" and "Thank You" went really well together. So, but I am not one to leave something super simple. So I've gone ahead and added jewels around the shape of the middle, and I'm just gluing them into place. Those are just some small yellow iridescent gems that I had on hand. So those are my first two cards for the hop today. Once again, this features the Summer Flower press plate, and here is a peek at some of the photos that I took of this card. I hope that you enjoyed watching these cards come together. And now I'm going to move on to some cards that I made this was actually for the blog hop last week. This features the Butterfly Bliss die set, but I thought it might be fun for you to see them all come together. So all of those cardstock colors that I just shared with you, I cut all of the dies from those colors. So I wanted to show you a little thing that I did here to make paper piecing these butterfly wings a little bit easier. I just drew the shape of the wing onto white cardstock and then just cut it out with freehand with scissors. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can, make little trims once we back the wing with it. But I found this just easier. I wanted to do multicolor paper piecing of all of those die cut elements in there. And so I just thought this was the easiest way to do it. So I did those little backers for all of my different wings. I've cut out 6 different wings because I am making 2 cards here. And then here you can see you can just easily trim away the area where there's a little bit of excess. So now we have this background where we can pretty easily add the die cut elements into it. And so I am just going to use an embellishment tool and start adding all of the fun flowers and elements in there. I'm going to speed this way up because this could get to be really boring for you watching. And I'm only going to showcase one butterfly wing coming together. And then once we get through this, you'll get to see them all. But as mentioned, I'm just using liquid glue and an embellishment tool to help add all of the little elements. Now, some of the very small elements, like the little tiny circles and the little tiny half circles, I just decided to leave in white. I thought that was so much easier. So now, as we assemble the butterflies, something to mention, if you didn't want to take the time to do all of the different colors, I know that can be a little time consuming. You could easily just add a one color underneath using the technique with the tracing element, or you could also just leave them empty. I think that all of those options would be just as beautiful. So for the butterflies, I'm starting by adhering all of the wings down to the body that I cut from white. And then we will go ahead and we will add the body that I cut from glitter and also the little antennas to the top. Now on this first butterfly, I made things a little bit harder on myself. I went ahead and I added the entire body of the butterfly, the body of the butterfly first, and I added that with some foam tape. What I found is that it is much easier. It would have been much easier if I would have glued down the antennas first. So learn from my mistake. I do it the right way on the second butterfly, but if you glue down the antennas first, you can. It was just so much simpler. Now, I ended up cutting the wings the wrong way because I actually wanted my butterfly to face towards the left, but technically the die for the antennas faces the other way. So I actually just flipped the die around and cut it from the white side of the glitter paper and then flipped those antennas around, and that made those antennas swing in the direction that I wanted them to be. So keep that in mind. If you ever want a die to be the other way, yes, you don't get that extremely perfect edge, but it does make things a little bit more versatile, and you can make your butterfly face whichever direction you want. Now, I die cut these fantastic cover plate dies. This is the Alhambra Arabesque die. I've cut it twice from white cardstock, and I am ink blending a gradient to it. So this is the gradient for the die that just has the butterfly that just has the two wings. So I am blending a gradient for that butterfly. And then here is the gradient for the other butterfly. This, I just glued them down directly to some ivory glitter cardstock, added some scalloped rectangles, and then went ahead and adhered the butterflies, the sentiments, and some additional floral dies to the front of each card to finish. I've got 3 more cards to share with you, and these were the cards that I created for the Instagram hop last week. I started with doing some BetterPress work with the Peony Blossoms press plate. You'll notice I've lined the Peony Blossom press plate up at the bottom, and I am ink blending a gradient to it in just some shades of pink. Now, you always have to think about the BetterPress as opposite. So I wanted my lighter shades to, when you visibly look at it on my card, I wanted them to run from left to right for this bigger element at the bottom. So when I want them to be blended from, or when I want the gradient to go from light to dark, from left to right, you have to do that opposite on your BetterPress. So I started lighter on the right side and worked my way left. So once you feel good about your gradient and you remove any of the little, thread pieces that might have come from your ink cube, go ahead and run it through your die cut machine, and let's take a look at how the gradient turned out. I am just loving it. I think that's so stunning. Every single time I use the BetterPress system, I'm reminded of how quickly these cards come together, how easy, and just how beautiful they turned out. So I wanted to add a little bit of the flower to the top as well, and I also wanted it to be in a gradient, but I wanted the gradient to be opposite. So this time I am working from left to right and doing light to dark, and that will make the gradient opposite on the top. So I'm using all of the same colors and creating my lovely gradient here. And you'll notice I grab the cubes and go back and forth, and all I'm really doing is just smoothing out those gradient lines. So we're going to run this through our die cut machine one more time to get the top. Now, before we get to the next part of the video, I'm going to mention my panel might look a little bit different because I did mess up the sentiment on that card right there. So we are starting this again. So I created a new panel, and I am judging the placement of the sentiment better. So keep in mind, maybe when you do this, better press a couple of panels just in case you make a little oops on your sentiment. Not a big deal. You could probably use that panel as well. I have a feeling that it's possible that the sentiment might have actually slipped when it went through. So I'm going to be a little bit more mindful of how I do that. So I did a little bit of checking. I did a little bit of measuring and made sure that my sentiment was in an area where it would not overlap with the Peony Blossoms this time. And I think we ended up having success. So yay. I just love that card. I love that great sentiment. All right, we used the Peony Blossoms plate to BetterPress. Let's go ahead and foil it. So I'm foiling it in polished brass foil to a pretty large panel of watercolor paper. I believe it's Strathmore watercolor paper. And we're going to do a little bit of watercoloring on this. Now, I'm not going to show the whole watercolor process, so keep that in mind. But take a look at how stunning that turned out. Now, I did make a third bonus card with that extra leftover foil. I already showed you how to solid foil, so go ahead and foil that if you want to make the bonus card as well. So we are going to do a little bit of watercoloring. Now, I have sped this way up because I'm a slow watercolor, and you're only going to see one flower come together and a few leaves, but you will get to see the finished product. Now, these are sparkle markers again, and I believe the colors I'm using here are macaroon and cotton candy. Of course, you can use any watercolor product that you have on hand, or is that your preference. And I am just kind of a loose, messy watercolor. I think this is proof that you don't have to be a professional to enjoy it. I absolutely love to use watercolor. I will never claim to have 1,000 techniques, but I do have fun doing it. And I think it just really turned out beautiful with this Peony Blossoms press plate from this July release from Syberia. So we're finishing up flower 1 here, and I think that's all I'm going to showcase in the actual video. So there are all of the flowers finished by, the magic of internet. Now let's go ahead and do some of the leaves. This is soft jade, also a sparkle marker as well. And I am just going to color in the leaves kind of in the same way that I do the flowers. They're a little messy. I leave a little white space here and there. I'll go in and add a little depth or a little extra jade here and there to give the flowers some gradation. But that is my watercolor panel. I'm hoping that in one of the shots here, you'll actually be able to see how much sparkle there is because it turned out just so pretty. So here are the finished cards. They were really simple to make. I basically just trimmed the panels down and popped them up onto card bases. And then on that one, I added one of those foiled sentiments that we did at the very beginning of the video. And then here is that bonus shaker card featuring the leftover foiling or the reverse foiling from the watercolor card. I also used a foiled sentiment for it. Now, the reverse foiling can always be a little bold. So it is a great place to create a shaker card like this. Just a reminder that these cards are part of a YouTube video hop for Syberia Designs July release. Now would be a great time to head over to her channel as I'm the last hop on the stop. Thank you all so much for joining me and checking out my video today. I hope you enjoyed watching these cards come to life. I'm so grateful for all of the support that you give me here on my channel and all of the places that you find Leah Lawson Creates. Whether it's a heart, a like, a comment, a share, or if you shop from my links, I really, really do appreciate it. Speaking of links, if there is anything in this video that interests you and you'd like to purchase it, I have linked it in the video description to all of the places that I work with that it might be available. So one way that you can keep in touch with all of the things that are happening at Leah Lawson Creates is by signing up for my email newsletter. A few times per week, I send inspiration direct to your inbox. And I also include things like any upcoming lives or video premieres, classes, or virtual events that I might be part of or teaching at. I also share giveaways, prizes, sales, and freebies from all of the wonderful companies that I get the privilege to work with as well. So if you'd like to keep in touch, under the Let's Connect section in my video description, there is a link to sign up for my email newsletter as well. And I would love to have you join. Other than that, until I catch you in my next video, I hope you have a wonderfully creative day. Bye.